for being here for this last and final session for the closing plenary of the Indiaspora Forum for Good 2025. I'll start with a little bit of a personal story. The reason I want to say this is because we are at an event, and much like this event, I was at my first Indiaspora event almost 9 years ago in Philadelphia. I happened to be invited as a speaker. I participated on some panels about US-India relations and talked a little bit about strategy with the board of directors, with some of our members at the time of the organization. And I came away from the event thinking to myself that, gosh, if there's an organization like this that does this kind of work, I want to be part of it. As luck would have it, there indeed was a vacancy at Indiaspora, applied for the job, got the job, and I feel very, very lucky and privileged to be doing the kind of work I do, because what I do entails meeting people like you every day. And that is an experience like no other. It's energizing. And so I really do thank you all for being here this afternoon and over the last 2 days. As I've often said to a lot of people, if I were a millionaire, I would pay to do this job, not get paid to do it. But we need to get started with the subject at hand today. And we're going to rejig the order just a little bit. We have the great privilege of having with us Dr. Thani Al-Zayudi. He is the cabinet minister here in the UAE responsible for trade. And we've had the high honor of knowing Dr. Thani for about, I think, at least 4 years now. We did our first major event in the UAE in 2021 in Abu Dhabi and Dubai as part of the global expansion of Indiaspora that MR and I were mentioning yesterday. And as one of the featured sessions of that event, it was a multi-day event, but as one of the featured sessions, we had an extensive fireside chat with Dr. Thani at the Burj Al Arab in Dubai. And that was a pivotal moment in UAE-India relations, because as we talked about yesterday with the release of the Indiaspora BCG Impact Report, that was the time when the CEPA, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, was being signed between the two countries. And if there is anybody responsible in the UAE for getting that signed, I cannot think of anyone more instrumental and fundamental in doing that work than Dr. Thani. The negotiations for that trade agreement, which has served as a template for so many other dozens of agreements since then for the UAE, that agreement took about 88 days to negotiate, which in today's world is remarkable because these agreements take 88 months, quite literally, right? We've been talking about free trade agreements between countries forever, but that was remarkable. And to come back to Indiaspora, it fills me with joy that in today's times when countries, when people, when society seems to be a little more inward looking, that we are expressly an organization that doesn't talk about I, me, and myself, but that talks about you, that talks about us, you and me together. And that's what I love about Indiaspora. What I love about it is that it's a platform that cuts across borders. But with that, let me take this opportunity to invite Dr. Thani up to the stage, and let's hear his remarks and receive his words of wisdom. Dr. Thani? Thank you. Thank you. Also take a moment to acknowledge His Excellency Sanjay Sudhir, the Ambassador of India to the United Arab Emirates. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for this introduction, Excellencies, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Namaskar. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon. And as we reflect on a remarkable few days that has been spent here in the UAE, in our lovely capital, with many insightful discussions about profound contributions of the Indian diaspora worldwide, and especially here in the UAE. I'm sure the sessions have showcased the vast influence of this community across businesses, science, cultural, and humanitarian efforts, and highlighting the creativity, the collaborations, the vision that will shape its future and drive new achievements. We have heard how artificial intelligence is reshaping industries and how the lessons of Silicon Valley are viewing India's venture capital landscape, and how technology is really transforming healthcare, and how India's rich history and philosophy are inspiring the next generation of leaders. There is no doubt that India and its global diaspora are at the forefront of the new economy, and here at the United Arab Emirates continues to benefit from this dynamism, just as we have since our earliest days as a nation. Today, more than 3.5 million Indian nationals call the UAE their home. They have established over 4,360 companies across diverse sectors, from real estate to retail and manufacturing to media. And many of our most impressive entrepreneurial success stories have been shaped by Indian business leaders who moved to the UAE, some starting from scratch and building thriving enterprises from the ground up. The Indian business community here plays a vital role in championing the UAE as a gateway for regional and international growth, and many opportunities has been there, and ensuring seamless flow of products, capital, and ideas between our two nations, as well as between us and many other countries. That is why when we launched our Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA program, India was the first country we approached. Our goal was to deepen the trade ties between the two nations with key high growth markets around the world. Markets that share our commitments to open, liberalized trade based on mutual benefit and common interest. India was not just a natural choice for CEPA, it was the obvious choice for our first. The fact that we concluded the free trade deal in just 88 days reflected our shared belief that closer economic alignment would bring broad-based inclusive growth for both nations. And the UAE-India CEPA was signed nearly 3 years ago now. And now, with almost 3 years of trade data, we can confidently say that the decision was the right one. In 2024, our bilateral non-oil trade reached record levels. In fact, trade between our nations grew by almost 20.5% compared to our numbers in 2023. And this is more than 10 times the global trade growth average. Today, the UAE receives more than 8% of India's total outbound goods, making us a key market for Indian businesses and exporters. And we have also seen an increase in strategic investments, from integrated food parks to vital ports infrastructure. Our nations are laying the foundation for long-term and sustainable growth. The Indian diaspora have been a key driving force behind these achievements and identifying opportunities, building networks, and accelerating progress. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this closing session, "The Sky is the Limit. We can do anything together," is a powerful call to action. One moment and one meant to inspire the Indian diaspora to stay connected, engaged, and supportive of one another, but also applies to the nations to which you all contribute so much. By working closely with the public and private sector here in the UAE, we can unlock even greater success. There, the UAE-India CEPA is not only boosting bilateral trade, it's connecting high-potential markets worldwide. Together, we're shaping an economic corridor like India and the Middle East and Europe through integrated transport networks and logistic infrastructure. And a prime example of this, the Bharat Mart in Jebel Ali, a 700,000 square foot complex that will enable Indian products to reach global markets. The Indian UAE Startup Initiative is also providing a vital platform for SMEs and entrepreneurs, while the UAE-India CEPA Council is ensuring businesses can fully leverage the benefits of our trade deal. We really hope that Indian-owned enterprises continue to see the UAE not only as a hub for growth, but also as a key gateway to new opportunities around the world. As the past 2 days have demonstrated, there is still immense potential in this evolving economic landscape, and it's clear that energy and ambition of the Indian diaspora will be instrumental to unlock many of those potential. Before I conclude, I want to switch and give some quick update as well on what we have been doing in the UAE. We concluded 25 agreements. The first was with India, but in 3 years we concluded 25 agreements. It gives us the market access to 3 billion population around the world, and 3 billion in emerging economies that many were questioning at the beginning. But we're seeing the numbers are growing with those nations. The beauty about the CEPAs that we're going against what is happening now globally with this nationalism, protectionism, many of the tariffs that has been applied, politicizing those actions against each other. But here in the UAE, we're not politicizing businesses, we're not politicizing the economy. The economy, business people are the one who is driving our international engagements, and we're going to continue ensuring that the businesses and the companies are having an ecosystem that support them to grow and expand from the UAE. We've been heavily investing globally. India was one of the markets, but the other markets, which is a shared and common interest between us and India, is Africa, is another market, and many other locations and destinations around the world. Last year, the UAE was the largest investor in Africa. And it shows that we're moving away from politicizing our investments, and we're really genuinely investing in those markets to ensure that there is a huge positive impact on those countries and markets that we're investing in. Last year, with many visits to Africa, one of the highlights of my visits to Africa, one of the African nations, was to Cote d'Ivoire. During that visit, we inaugurated a cajou processing factory, which is almost 7 hours drive from the capital. 500 women being employed in that factory. The spin-over of that investment is very massive in a village which is far away from the capital. But with our investments, we're ensuring that there is a socio-economic impact of such investments, and I'm sure with many investments from and engagements and partnership with the Indiaspora, we can do much more with such approach and engagements. We've been as well very attractive to many of the global billionaires and millionaires to the UAE. Last year, we had more than 6,700 millionaires who moved to the UAE from many countries, and because of the ecosystem that we're having. And we don't undermine the diaspora because they're the one who can have a huge impact on the talent attraction to the country. And many of them were Indian, who've been contributing to our real estate investments, developments, the retail markets, financial market, logistics, and many other sectors. And now I want to conclude with the UAE engagements. We're doing so many visits as well with the tech nations and tech advanced exhibitions. And my last visit was 2 months ago, actually 1.5 months ago, to the US. Surprisingly, most of the tech leaders in the States are led by the Indiaspora. Shows how talented and how highly skilled the Indiaspora and how they're contributing to the futuristic technology and sector around the world. I'm sure we're going to cross each other somewhere around the world, but for those who are planning to have a footprint here in the UAE, you're welcome. We'll be more than happy to extend the full support for your expansion and presence here in the UAE and ensure your presence and businesses is very successful. I'm looking forward to being a partner in this journey with many of you, and I wish you very continued success. I'm looking forward to host you and many of you here back in UAE. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thani. We are going to request you to stay on the stage for a second. We have a couple of special things to be gifted to you. And I'll invite M.R. Rangaswamy, the founder of the organization, to give you a token of our appreciation. Thank you, Dr. Thani. I'd like to know, I was scanning the room, but I couldn't see, is His Excellency Dr. Tayyib Kamali in the room already? Not yet. Okay, all right. Then we're going to resume our normal order of programming. One of the people that I was referring to when I started out just talking about this plenary, the sky is the limit. By the way, the next speaker is a great exemplar of that. She's on our board of directors, Priya Natarajan. And she was one of the people that I spoke with when I started this position almost 9 years ago. Over time, Priya has been a source of guidance and advice and suggestions at Indiaspora, and I've gotten to know her. Obviously, she's become a friend, but I am going to read her bio because, like a few people at Indiaspora, she has several accolades to her name, and I want to make sure I don't forget them. Priya Natarajan is an astrophysicist and a professor of astronomy and physics at Yale University. For her seminal discoveries, she was named to the Time 100 list of most influential people in the world in 2024. She is also the 2025 recipient of the prestigious Danny Heinemann Prize for Astrophysics, given by the American Astronomical Society and the American Institute of Physics. She is the only Indian physicist to have ever been awarded this prize. Come, Priya, please. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. It's a real privilege to be part of Indiaspora, and I've been fortunate to be involved from the very start. MR and Srinivas, I still remember that phone call that I got, roped me in and invited me to the first meeting at Montauk. And it's been an absolutely wonderful journey so far to be sort of really watching this community aggregate and really be exposed to the remarkable people of the diasporic community. Anyway, the theme for today is new models for the world and new models for the future. So I am here to make a case for blue sky research and for basic scientific research and deeper investments in basic scientific research in both the United States and in India. So both from the governments as well as from private philanthropy. I think if you just think for a minute, all the inventions and innovations, everything that we take for granted today, like the phone that you're all carrying in your pockets, would not have happened without the quantum mechanics, quantum physics revolution of the early 1900s. And the fundamental breakthroughs, any fundamental breakthrough that you can think of, well, for that matter, how you actually got here, just would not, is powered on physics, is powered on very fundamental discoveries in physics. And as before, we are now witnessing other new revolutions and revelations of the cosmos that are also driven by physics. However, we're living in an utterly paradoxical time. While the pace of scientific research is really accelerated, in the United States especially, the distrust in science is at an all-time high. The denial of climate change and the disbelief in the efficacy of vaccines, for example, is deeply troubling. Science is really the only way, the only rigorous way that we have of converting information from the universe, from the world, to scientific fact. And all our complex global problems require science for their solution, along with, of course, our human effort and our human commitment to those. So I want to share and give you a vignette of my work to highlight two things. First, to show you what is so exciting in science today, across disciplines, not just my field, even in the biological sciences, for example. the lag between a radical new theoretical idea being proposed and it being tested with a discovery, validating it, has shrunk so dramatically that it's very possible now in a single lifetime of a scientist that an idea is proposed and it's tested and validated. The kind of thing that used to take a century, if not more. And the second point I want to make is the conceptual frameworks to fill and join the dots to show you how the conceptual frameworks, the mathematical structures, and the architecture for algorithms dealing with big data that scientists like me and our research groups have generated. Image processing, for example, the algorithms is just one example. They translate and are now very much part of your day-to-day. You may not even realize that these fundamental physical ideas have actually crept into devices and things that you use every day. So for example, if you go to for an optical examination of your retina, you go for an MRI, the analysis that is done, I'll show you in a minute, is the same kind of analysis. And it's the kind of work that is built on people like me, work that we did for actually mapping dark matter in the universe. And this is a classic example, of course, you all know, is of Einstein's theory of general relativity, right? A very obtuse, complicated mathematical theory. But GPS on your phone is a direct result of that theory. And you wouldn't know where you are today. We wouldn't have space flight without GPS. So let me just show you where we are in terms of, so cosmology and astrophysics, the quest has been to really try to find our place in the universe. And you have remarkable instruments like the James Webb Space Telescope that are currently permitting us to learn much more about the universe than we ever imagined we could. So for example, now we know quite exquisitely the timeline of the universe. We know that the majority of our universe is shaped by invisible entities. And the job of people like me is to render those invisible entities visible, to visualize them. So most of the matter in the universe is dark matter. What you see in the bottom panels are what a Hubble Space Telescope image, where you don't actually see the dark matter, but it's there, its gravity is very much there. And we back out, and what you see in the blue haze is a map of the dark matter. And in between, you see the hills and the valleys. That's a reconstruction, a high resolution reconstruction of the distribution of invisible matter in the universe. And the cartographic techniques that we use, these are the same techniques that have now been adopted in MRIs and in mapping the retina. I want to share this other very, very exciting discovery when I was talking about the lag between proposing a radical new idea. So this is a new idea that I had proposed starting in 2005, but a prediction was made in 2017 before James Webb actually flew. It was launched, as you all know, much later. And this was a new way to make the first black holes in the universe. So I was very, very fortunate to get a gift from the universe. And they actually found exactly the kind of object that I had predicted in 2023. So this is just to kind of show you the pace of research has really, really accelerated. And in universities, we have ceded the intellectual leadership in AI to the corporate world. And that has opened up many important questions, ethics, privacy, and its impact on humanity. I hope this is not going to be the case for fundamental science and for blue sky research. And I hope that vested interests actually that prevent us from taking creative risks as scientists working in the academic setting actually are allowed to continue and are well funded. So I just want to point out here that this is the Hope Explorer from the UAE that went to Mars, at least did reconnaissance on Mars, as well as Mangalyaan. And you have these incredible machines that I just want to highlight the work, the results that they've given us, and their actual creation and fabrication, the technologies that have gone into it, are just astounding. So none of this would have happened without fundamental science. So I just want you to pay attention to that. And I just want you all to support STEM education and equitable access to STEM education everywhere in the world. And also realize that, there's a way in which we can use the kind of knowledge that people like me are sort of giving you about the far reaches of the universe to allow us to transcend beyond our differences and to think globally. And we have to realize and take stewardship of our planet. There is no planet B. This is all we've got. So I think we need to be better stewards. So I'll just stop here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Priya. One of the things that I've enjoyed about interacting with you is that you make science accessible to non-scientists. I remember attending one of the lectures in Washington, D.C. about 7 or 8 years ago, I think it was. And I found, your explanations of your very scientific work very comprehensible for non-astrophysicists like myself. So thank you for doing that yet again. We're going to change gears a little bit now, and we are going to go into another field. I will be shortly inviting up to the stage Dr. Tony Nader, who is a leader in transcendental meditation. I know he conducted a very well-received session earlier today, a meditation session earlier today in the morning, and I know several of you were at that session. Let me quickly read his brief bio for you. Dr. Tony Nader, MD and PhD, is a medical doctor trained at Harvard and at MIT, where he has a PhD in neuroscience. He is globally recognized in the science of consciousness and human development, and his training includes internal medicine, psychiatry, and neurology. He is the author of a best-selling book and is the successor to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and is also the president of Maharishi International University. Dr. Tony Nader, I'd like to invite you up to the stage, please.
We are all attempting for ourselves and for people we love and for the whole world, for the community, to survive and thrive. And it's my joy on this occasion to congratulate and thank the Indian diaspora for their amazing contribution to the whole world family. And in particular, based on what I would like to share with you today, the essence of their knowledge, which I feel is essential in safeguarding humanity and maintaining balance in the family of nations, guiding the world towards a place where there is good for everyone and nobody has non-good in their life, and this initiative is a starting point. It is wonderful that we started with the great Dr. Natarajan on the level of her amazing work and her presentation, and I would like to second and support every word that she said, except I like to also take it one step further in terms of ultimate frontiers. We have seen with her and her successful description of mapping the heavens in a great book that she has written and great work that she has done, an ultimate frontier going outside. And what I'd like to discuss with you today is an ultimate frontier looking inside, looking within. And that is a question about worldview and about reality. What is reality? What is worldview that we have? And on which basis do we actually conduct our affairs, our business, our hopes, our expectations? To summarize, there are two different broad categories of worldview. One is that the universe starts with energy, And as you see in the beautiful slide that Dr. Natarajan presented, there was a gap between the Big Bang and the starting of the expansion of the universe. And this is because when you reach the small scales of time and space, about 10 to the minus 33 centimeters in terms of space, you reach what is called the Planck dimensions and the Planck area. And when you go beyond that, all the equations kind of fall apart and you start getting infinities that you don't know how to manage. And so this is going outward in the universe, and it's beautiful work which has amazing contributions and amazing implications, as we have partially heard, because it's much more than what she presented. Now, there is another angle which is going deeper into the smaller than the smallest, so going to the farther out gravitational fields and all of these values on the space dimension. But science also looking into the smaller than the smallest and discovered some reality that is unexpected, which is what we call quantum level of reality. So we have the classical reality of the big objects. We have the quantum mechanics. We have quantum field theories. What it means is really basically if you take any object divided into small pieces, you end up with what the Greeks called the atom, which is that which is indivisible. But then we found recently in terms of time, that it is made of particles that are themselves fluctuations of fields, and that there is quantum field theory, which gave us something that we didn't expect, such as object being connected throughout space and time, and as if beyond the speed of light, which is what we call entanglement. Objects are not localized necessarily, they are superimposed on each other. Objects mean small particles in this case. And also there is probability, there is uncertainty, and that's what they call weirdness of quantum mechanics and quantum field. Going deeper into the quantum fields, we have what is called a unified field of natural law, which is unifying all the laws of nature, and there is a supergravity, super string theory, M2 theory that describes what this field could be, that actually what it tells us is that is one field, and that field is actually what appears as the other fields, and these other fields actually fluctuate, appear as particles that come together, create atoms, then they become molecules, molecules come together, they become cells, and then they create the entire universe as we know it, including our nervous system. And the idea in the mind-body problem is that consciousness is something that emerges after this energy complexifies and condenses and creates a complex organized structure such as our nervous system, and then consciousness emerges. So this is one worldview, one aspect of seeing reality. We have Maharishi Mahesh Yogi on the screen, who comes from the Vedic tradition and who, like the Vedic tradition, from the Vedic tradition, says that actually it's not this way that it works. That this unified field is actually a field of consciousness, a field of pure being, a mathematical field in a sense, but actually a field of consciousness, of awareness. And there are many conundrums, many questions, many challenges in this area, because how does this consciousness, which is primary, as described in Advaita Vedanta, that consciousness is primary, how does it appear as the entire universe? And that is the worldview of the Vedic tradition. So your worldview, in essence, is that consciousness is primary, and from consciousness everything emerges. The alternative worldview is that there is some energy which appears, we don't know from where, and that energy creates all that we have. So there is a physicalist perspective, and there is a consciousness perspective. In my book, One Unbounded Ocean of Consciousness, and the other book, Consciousness is All There Is, I take the structure and function of our human physiology, the structure and function of what we see in physics, what we see in the universe, all that we interact on social level, on psychological level, on philosophical level, and put all of this together to take the logic that actually consciousness is primary, and how can we actually defend that. Not only defend that, how it actually solves very important problems in existential reality, in worldview, and understanding how we are, where we are, why there is suffering, is there freedom or determinism, where things begin, where do they go. The big questions of life can be solved through this paradigm. And so to prove that consciousness is primary rather than an emergent quality, you have to do a group of interconnected, multidisciplinary thoughts and questions in order to prove it, because you cannot actually measure consciousness directly in the same way as, for example, you cannot see dark matter directly, and you use things like gravitational lensing and all aspects to see how it creates an effect. So when you look at this from a perspective of the Vedic tradition, you find that there are technologies of consciousness that allow us to actually change our consciousness, improve and broaden our consciousness, and you see the effects of this on our physiology, on our behavior, and even on society. So Maharishi took that explanation, and he says that there are these different techniques: concentration, open monitoring, or mindfulness. And that takes us actually from surface thinking to deeper level of thinking, and ultimately to experience ourself, our true self, as a field of Atma, as a field of consciousness. This is transcending, which means going beyond the surface and reaching the level of samadhi, which is the level of inner being. Now, this has tremendous effects, and there are more than 500 scientific research studies on this technology of consciousness, in this case, transcendental meditation, that shows that life improves in every way. Mind improves, intelligence quotient, emotional quotient improve in students, and these are published research in peer-reviewed journals. Behavior improves, health improves, and even society as a whole improves when a group of people practice this program. I'll just show 2 slides on this regard. One is how transcendental meditation decreases hospital admissions, which is the outcome of better health in every area of health that is included. And of course, the other scientific studies show tremendous behavior. Now, what is very interesting is when a small group of people practice this program together, they create a social effect that is beyond the limitation of the individual person, and therefore there is an effect on what we call collective consciousness. And a longitudinal study has shown that when we reach a critical number of people practicing this program together, you have tremendous changes in society, even in people who don't practice this program, because the effect is global and it's from a field effect rather than a localized effect. And this have shown very significant and clear results showing there is a decrease in crime, decrease in hospital admission, decrease in infant mortality, decrease even in accidents of the road. So when we're looking for solutions to the big problems, we have to realize that consciousness is primary. This worldview gives us the ability to act from the true basis of life rather than from the surface basis of life. There are many other factors and evidence that come together in terms of how this is I cannot take the time from you to explain every one of them, but I tell you the things that this paradigm of consciousness actually solves and addresses. It addresses the mind-body problem in a very systematic way, and it is testable through experiences and experiments, and it also has answers to things that we kind of realize on the surface, but that we have found to be questionable. For example, when we say everything is physical through our senses and the extension of our senses in our instruments, this is only one perception, and that perception is based on limited sensory perception. Our senses are limited in their ability to see, because if you were a cyclotron or if you were a machine that sees at a faster rate or experiences different frequencies of light, the universe will actually really look differently. The world, everything is real, science is real, it's important to do research and a basic research, and the kind of research that Dr. Natarajan is doing is very important, so it doesn't discard that, but it points us to somewhere which is very, very fundamental in us. And there are different things that, again, contribute to supporting this paradigm, is that it solves problems about life, freedom, determinism, suffering, why we are here, and addresses fundamental questions, because after all that we do, and I'm going to throw this at you in a dramatic way, again, another radical perception, is that all what we do is about consciousness, about being conscious, and how from the platform of consciousness we want to improve our own consciousness, the flavors, the colors of our own consciousness, or through different practices, improve the consciousness of others. And so it is a path towards unifying ourselves with others and creating a society that is more holistic, more full through different activities, which can be on a physical level, health programs, etc., on a compassion level, on actions level, on karma, on activity. But ultimately, it's all about consciousness, and the solution to the world's problem are within consciousness and within your tradition and the technologies that Veda and Vedic literature has brought to us. Time is going, so I cannot go deeper than that for now, but this is, I wanted to discuss entropy and the origin of the universe from zero entropy potentially, and how it emerges, why it emerges, and how consciousness actually becomes and appears as matter. These are steps that are actually very clearly definable, and we can study them. They are described in the book. There are 40 aspects of Veda and Vedic literature that are patterns of consciousness themselves, and these patterns of consciousness, we find them in our own human physiology, such as, for example, the book of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, with its 4 chapters, correspond, including its sutras, to the 4 lobes of our brain. And the thalamus, for example, corresponds to the Nyaya Sutras, which each part of the Nyaya, 16 different divisions, they are actually physically present in our body, in our thalamus. And this way we can see that even the concepts of Devata are reflected in our physiology. Here we see Ganesh. We discussed in the Ramayana the physiology, and this is how we see that all aspects of Veda and Vedic literature are patterns of consciousness that are the blueprint of our own physiology. So technologies of consciousness are the hope, and of course all activities in terms outside directed, including caring for others, continuing to do basic research, continuing to understand the universe based on our clear consciousness rather than on a stress, prejudice, and cluttered consciousness, is the hope for having oneness among diversity. And that is the strengths that, one of the main strengths that India offers to the world. Thank you for being there, and thank you for the knowledge that you shared with us.
thank you so much, Dr. Nader, for bringing consciousness to the forefront. We're now going to have a small panel with a couple of people talking about mental health. And I'm going to invite on the stage Anisha Padukone and Robbie Uttapa. Come anyway. Start with a bit of a personal thing, personal reflection. You know, Anisha, we have had the pleasure as an organization at Indiaspora of getting to know you over the past 2 or 3 years at least. And a small anecdote in the, by the way, we also have the pleasure of knowing your father from his philanthropic perspective of the Olympic Gold Quest. Anisha, of course, is the CEO of Live, Love, Laugh Foundation. And the reason I mentioned that is because, you know, in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, of course, when your dad was at the peak of his powers as a shuttler, he won the All England Championship against, I think, I'm an avid sports follower. He won the All England Championship against a gentleman, a Danish gentleman named Paul Erik Høyer Larsen. And I think there was an anecdote where he was so joyous that he forgot to shake hands. And then when Paul Erik Høyer Larsen was asked, you know, about that later, he said, "Oh, Prakash is such a lovely guy. You know, it doesn't matter what he does. I know his heart." You know, and I mentioned that because in getting to know you over the past 2, 3, 4 years, the work you do, the authenticity and the passion with which you do it, one sees the same grace. So thank you for being here. Robbie, by the way, Robin Uttapa is the formal name, but he prefers going by Robbie. Robbie, you, over the past several months, as we've been having a conversation about this, I mean, you know, I've known Robin Uttapa and seen Robin Uttapa on TV, as I think many of us have, as a cricket fan, but the authenticity and the openness with which you speak about such a difficult subject has been very touching, and I'm looking forward to this conversation and what that will mean for all of our attendees. Let me start with you, Anisha. What is it that inspired you to do the work that you do? Tell us the story of Live, Love, Laugh Foundation, how it got started, and what it is that you are currently doing and aspire to do at the organization.
Sure. Thank you for that, Sanjeev. I think that's probably one of the best compliments that a child can receive, to know that, you know, you're compared to your parent. Firstly, thank you to Emma, the team at Indiaspora, and to all of you for having me here. It's an absolute honor to speak in front of so many great achievers. But to answer your question on mental health, our founder, my sister Deepika, experienced mental illness when she was at the time at the peak of her career. She went through anxiety and depression, but she did not know what she was going through. And we were fortunate enough to have access to professional support in the form of a counselor and a psychiatrist, and also fortunate enough to have you know, the affordability to be able to receive that treatment. And once she recovered from that process, and took about a year to get, you know, to a stage where you can actually sort of function, she wanted to be able to create an organization that really did a lot of consistent work in mental health, and which can last, you know, way beyond, say, all of us. That's really the reason why the foundation started up in the first place. I actually joined them a year or so later, wanting to be able to volunteer a little bit of my time, but within the first, you know, couple of weeks of spending some time, the enormity of the situation with regard to mental illness in India as well as globally really captured my attention. Secondly, the unique position that this organization has to be able to make a difference in a country like India with the position that we're in, I think allowed me to, you know, sort of start thinking of a career beyond. At the time, I was a professional golfer and started to think about a career beyond sport as well. So that's really when I made, you know, the transition. And it's been, you know, it's going to be 10 years that we've been around as an organization. What we focus on, if I can just summarize it in easy way for everyone to remember, we like to call it the 3 A's: awareness and destigmatization of mental health, creating accessibility or enabling access to credible information as well as resources in the form of mental health professionals, free helpline numbers. And the third aspect is affordability, because whether it's urban or rural India, mental health care is not really very affordable at right now. So these are the 3 things that we focus on. In terms of the future, we want to be able to solve for mental health a little bit at scale. Because if you look at the numbers, or the number of people who are affected by this, the Lancet journal actually says that 1 out of 7, every 7 Indians will experience mental illness in their lifetime. And if there are about 300 people in this room, you can do the math and figure out. And this is also a pre-COVID statistic. There isn't any updated data that at least I'm aware of post-COVID, and that I'm sure that number has gone up drastically. So if we have to solve for this at scale, I'd say so far we've just about scratched the surface. We want to be able to make a really big dent and be able to help a lot more people through our work.
And in terms of scaling the work that you're doing, what are some of the key ingredients that you think would be required to bring what you are doing to larger scale?
Couple of things. I think something that we've started doing of late or trying to do is working alongside various governments, state as well as central, to try and really partner and collaborate with them. Partnerships is something that we're very focused on from day one. We've been doing it well. So that's one. Secondly, trying to integrate technology, and this is the right room to talk about that in. But how do you use technology in the form of teleconsultation, tele mental health, to solve for not just internal processes but also to reach a larger audience. And we do a lot of work in rural areas, so it's also where a lot more people need help and support. And then the third thing is, of course, partnerships with like-minded organizations, spreading the word, spreading the message. So I think a combination of all of these things is really what we would do.
Thanks, Anisha. Robbie, I'm going to turn to you, and I'm going to ask you a 2-part question, or really, I guess, 2 questions. One is, tell us a little bit about your life's journey, and I'll dovetail that by saying this. It's a very banal question, but I'll ask it because I think it fleetingly crosses the minds of people when they think about mental health in general. How does someone who has the peak of achievement and success and adulation and fame and all of that, wearing an India jersey, like yourself, how does one face mental health challenges when one is in that kind of position? I know this is something Deepika has talked about as well in the past, that mental health is something that can impact all of us and does impact all of us. So it's not about fame and stature, which is why I said it's a banal question, but it is something that fleetingly does cross people's minds. Why is he facing challenges, kind of thing? That's one. And second, what are you doing about it right now? I know we've talked about it, but I'd like you to tell our participants in their own words as to what you're doing.
First of all, thank you for having me here. I think it's an incredible platform to be able to talk about this thing. I think mental health and well-being in that sense, as far as answering your first question is concerned, I think for high-performing individuals, we're a little bit more primed for this, in the sense that the stakes are a lot higher, so you experience the pressures of it a lot more intensely. And simply because of that reason, I think you tend to kind of experience the high-pressure situations a lot more. There's a lot more at stake, and that kind of primes you for these kind of situations where you don't really pay attention to your mental health in that sense, because you operate from a high stress point for a lot of time. And when you're exposed to that situation for a certain period of time, then you kind of put yourself in a situation where you're playing catch up, because you're always behind the 8 ball, and you play catch up with it, and suddenly you feel like nothing is right. And because nothing is right, you don't know where to start from. And I myself am someone who's experienced that, which is why I speak so actively about it. I think I went through my journey of being clinically depressed, and that kind of progressed to becoming suicidal. And then it was through those experiences that I realized that, okay, I need help, and made myself aware of that I needed help, seeked help, and then made a bunch of mistakes along the way, but learned the right way. In fact, within our society, in the Indian diaspora, so to speak, it is still at a very nascent stage. And I think we need to shed a lot more light on it. We need to talk about it a lot more. I think shatter the taboo that's attached to mental health and well-being. And I think it has to become more mainstream. The conversations have begun. We are throwing light on it through being present in events such as these. But I think to break the stigma attached to it is critical in our ecosystem. And if we can do that in our society, I think we'll set ourselves up to be able to progress a lot more within society.
And Robbie, the second question, what are you doing about addressing this problem?
Well, to do my 2 cents, I'm actually certified myself as a performance coach and an NLP practitioner. I've pivoted slightly away from cricket, getting into the coaching space, trying to do my bit as far as shedding light on this is concerned, because if there's a dark corner, then people are always scared of it. But you shed more light on that space, then people get aware of, okay, what's there in that space, and then they start venturing into that space, become more familiar with it, and they realize, hey, this is not so bad. I remember the first time I went to a counselor, one of the first instructions I got from my mom was, don't tell anyone about this, and I was, and then I was like, okay, as a young kid, as a 21-year-old, you're like, okay, fine, I'm not going to tell anyone about it. But cut to 3 months later of working with my counselor, I felt so empowered. I was thinking, and I asked my mom, why shouldn't I be telling anyone about this? I should be telling everybody about this. This is so cool. This is so awesome. I feel so empowered 3 months into just having conversations with someone, and I was like, we need to speak a lot more about this. And that is why I do what I do with this work is concerned. And today, I think when I find myself on this platform, having this conversation, I think here I am with some of the topmost Indians from around the world. And I feel like this is a great opportunity for us to, we are the change makers, I believe. And I think today, as we sit here, you all are leading different verticals in different fields. And I feel like you all have the position and the power to be able to create a change within our ecosystem by setting up systems in place that will trickle down to the layman. I think Live Love Foundation and many such foundations are doing a lot of work from the rural front, but I think from the urban front. Today, I think when I visit a lot of corporates for the work that I do, I see that very little has been done as far as mental health and mental well-being is concerned. There is a designated mental well-being month, but they just send to offsites and they made to do yoga, so to speak. And I think mental health and well-being goes a lot deeper than that. And I think here, the people around here, people here at this forum can actually create a change for good as far as that is concerned. And I think that is what I think I'm endeavoring to do with all of this.
Thanks, Robbie. I know that neither of you obviously is a qualified psychiatrist, so I'm not asking for a medical diagnosis, of course, but the point I do want to sort of bring home and ask you about is, you talked about the need, Robbie, to, you understood, you had the awareness to figure out that you needed assistance. And in sensitizing India and the larger world about the importance of mental health, I think one of the first steps in that communication has to be for people to understand that they need to seek assistance. Many of us probably want to think of ourselves as saying, I'm all right, I don't need help, right? And so how do you get to that point? Is there anything in your work, in learning about mental health, in your journeys, how does one get to that point that you have the self-awareness to realize that you need to seek assistance? Either of you.
So I think, from my understanding, mental health, or mental illness rather, and let me differentiate, there's mental health and then there's illness, just like it is with any other health related. So with mental health, I think there are a lot of things that all of us can do as individuals, and we talked about, being able to help others. I think the first thing that all of us need to do is start taking better care of ourselves. And the simplest analogy I can give you all is when you sit on an aircraft and before we take off, and the air hostess or the stewardess says, in case of turbulence, there'll be an oxygen mask that drops down, and the first thing you need to do is put the mask on yourself before you can help someone else. And that's the exact same thing to do with mental health, because I know that if I'm not able to take care of myself, I can't do the work that I do, or I can't support a family member or a friend or a colleague. So I make sure that I try and take care of my own mental health. And if I can be extremely honest, I go to therapy myself. So if I don't do those things that work for me, I won't be able to take care of someone else. So I think that's the first step. Secondly, in terms of mental illness, there are signs and symptoms. While it's not as easy as identification of a physical illness, there are signs and symptoms that everyone can be aware about, which are different for stress and smaller levels of anxiety that we all experience on a regular basis. But then it gets into a little bit more clinical, which is depression, and then further down on the spectrum, you have bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, psychosis, and those are all sort of clinical issues that need to be dealt with by a mental health professional, ideally by a psychiatrist, in combination with a counselor who can also work at a slightly deeper level. So I think understanding the signs and symptoms is critical. With regard to mental health, there are a lot of things that we can do, and one of the things that I love to talk about is something that our chairperson, who's a psychiatrist, also talks about, is that unlike the West, we have the unique ability as India to marry practices of the East and the West. And when I say that, I mean with the West, a lot of the focus is only on medication, whereas in the East, we have access to practices like meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, and so many other aspects that we can cultivate just that have been passed on from generations, and we must make use of that to be able to have, let's say, a holistic approach to mental health as opposed to just physiological.
So I think to just carry on from what Anisha said, I think one of the things that we can do as we move forward is to set perhaps programs that run a little bit deeper. I think when you look at what signs and symptoms you kind of experience and how you catch yourself with being aware of there's something that's off. One of the things that I noticed was I caught myself in a situation where I felt like I was just operating through my subconscious, and then I was perhaps looking to do something that was some form of self harm, and then I caught myself. I got conscious about it, and then as soon as I got conscious about it, I stepped back and I said, okay, what's going on? To sometimes have an internal conversation with yourself as to where you are and how you're feeling from time to time. I think today, with the way society is set up, there is a basic lack of empathy that exists in the world. So if we can operate from a place where we see someone for a certain period of time not truly feeling okay, then I think just to sit down and ask them, hey, is everything all right? Just to check in with them from time to time. And similarly, while you're checking in with other people, sometimes you even check in with yourself. If you find yourself not feeling okay for a certain period of time, probably a couple of weeks, just check in with yourself. Hey, is everything okay? What has gone off? And to raise that self-awareness in that sense and just check in with yourself from time to time, I think becomes critical. Oftentimes in times of stress with the rigmaroles of our life and what we have going on, we oftentimes put ourselves in a situation where there's lack of sleep, there's stress that's going on, there's probably work pressure, there's probably family pressure, there are multiple things going on, and we don't ask ourselves the questions about, are we okay? And I think just to raise that awareness with ourselves and with people around us and the people that we love, if that can be done, I think it'll go a long way in just raising awareness. And a lot can be done, I think, even within the certain ecosystem that we exist in. I can talk about my fraternity. I think very little is done as far as mental health and well-being is concerned, as far as cricket is concerned as a sport, or sport in general for that matter. We find ourselves in high-stakes situations, high-pressure situations, but very little is done. And I think it's a mindset that's attached to it, and I think that needs to change. If we can set systems in place that is there in ecosystems that people can lean on, then I think we'll achieve a lot more better results over a period of time.
The conversation around mental health is gaining currency in the world of cricket as well, as you know, Robbie. And to your point about an ecosystem around you, a caring group of people, the ex-US Surgeon General, twice Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, often talks about how loneliness is terrible and how you really do need that ecosystem around you. So both of you make, I think, that same point. I know we are over time, so I'll give both of you 30 seconds each. One last closing parting thought message that you, or call to action, that you really want to leave our audience with.
Well, my call to action will be pretty straightforward, as in I think here today we sit amongst people in decision-making places, and I would encourage all of you all to pay genuine attention to mental health and well-being in the spaces that you all are, and to create spaces that can make it possible for people to reach out and just make it easier for them to discuss things and to raise awareness as far as mental health is concerned, and to create an ecosystem that is filled with a little bit of empathy, at least, because I think the world needs more of that.
I think echoing, what Robin says, there's a term that, everyone in the mental health sector was using during COVID. We were calling this the silent pandemic, and I don't think this has ended. It's something that is affecting so many people globally that I think we really need to prioritize it for ourselves, in our workplaces, and family systems everywhere. There was a little campaign that we did in 2016, which happened to be India's first public awareness campaign in mental health. And there was a line from that I really like, which is, again, along the lines of empathy. And I'll probably just, close with that, which is, Parwa hai to dobara pucho. And the name of the campaign was Dobara Pucho. So for anyone who doesn't understand Hindi, it translates to, if you care, ask again. So can we, as a society, as individuals, as empathetic people, I like to look at the world as glass half full as opposed to glass half empty. So for anyone who's going through mental illness, it's really, they're looking for light at the end of the tunnel. So can we just be those individuals who can shine?
Thank you. Thank you for this very important conversation. We could go on a lot longer. I'm guessing you're available for people who might have questions after the plenary, but thank you so much. Let's pose for a group picture before we call the next session up. Next, we are going to invite to the stage Didi Krishna, who is the head of the Sadhu Vaswani mission. I'll read her bio and then just make a personal comment. Didi Krishna is a spiritual leader and working chairperson of the Sadhu Vaswani mission. She grew up as a devotee and disciple of the masters Sadhu Vaswani and Dada J.P. Vaswani. She has compiled and edited several books and lectures by Dada J.P. Vaswani. That's just the short, formal bio, but there's a lot more to it than that, really. From several people in our network, MR, Rajan, Ashok, Sunil, so many others, and Neeta, so many others who are here today. I've been hearing a lot about the Sadhu Vaswani mission, indeed about you, Didi Krishna, and just outside earlier today, maybe about an hour or two ago, I had the privilege of interacting with you briefly, and what impressed me tremendously and really touched me was the humanist approach and the grace and the compassion that you bring to solving problems in society. That is, I think, an incredibly important message in today's divisive times, and we look forward to hearing from you firsthand more about it. Please come up to the stage.
My first word is a word of gratitude. I feel grateful to the organizers of the India Diaspora for this beautiful opportunity. I wish this was an interactive session, but since we all have been given limited time, I would leave some questions with you right at the outset. These questions, carry them with yourself. And when you get time, self-introspect on these questions, introspect on these questions. The first question is, what does goodness mean to me? Is it necessary? Is it important for me to be good? Am I on a sailboat that has, am I on a rowboat that has to be pushed into goodness? Or am I on a sailboat that moves with the wind? Or am I on a motorboat that moves on the path of goodness irrespective of weather or force? What motivates me to follow and stay on the path of goodness? What are the glimmers? And what prevents me? What triggers me to move away from the path of goodness? Today, when you get time, you must ask yourself these questions. Goodness is innate in each and every one of us. We all feel and experience goodness effortlessly. But when thoughts of I, me, myself overpower me, then my true nature gets clouded and I lose my focus, my purpose, and joy. In Hindu philosophy, there is one word that inclusively describes all aspects of goodness. What is that one word? That one word is dharma. And dharma, stated simply, is right thinking, right action, and right intention. As I said, goodness is embedded in each one of us. And when we act on it, we follow, we tread the path of dharma. But this requires courage. Courage to be true to our own innate goodness. How many of us present here dare to be ourselves? But sometimes we move away from this path, we deviate. We let our lower self overpower us. And then we become slaves to fear, to anxiety, to stress, to tension, to mental illnesses, and now we have come to the stage of depression. But when we tread the path of dharma, we let the higher self take over, and we feel strong, we feel balanced, we feel stable. Goodness, it leads to oneness. I realize that I am not separate from the others. I am but a part of the one whole. I realize that I am interconnected. We are linked to each other by an invisible thread. The same energy that flows into me flows into each and every one of you. Today, we live in a world of globalization, where we can connect easily and freely with one another, isn't it? We should be living in harmony. But what is our condition? We have become, in fact, more apathetic to the needs of each other. Instead of using globalization as a tool to unite, to bring us together. We are using it as a tool to divide, and therefore we have all this chaos and confusion today. How do we ensure that we let the higher self always take charge of our lives? And I would wish to pass on to you 6 short practical tips. I will not pause to give you illustrations because we are already running short of time. The first practical tip is, let us all learn to grow in self-awareness. Let us be aware of the consequences of every thought that we think, every word that we utter, every action that we perform. Remember, every thought that we think is a seed that we are sowing in the field of our life. And as we sow, so shall we reap. Every choice we make has a consequence. Therefore, be careful of every choice that you make. There was a Zen monastery, and the head, the Zen master, he admitted a new disciple. And the disciple said to him, I am a wood carver. And the monk said to him, since you're a wood carver, can you carve me a beautiful wood Buddha? And the wood carver was so thrilled to do that. He worked tirelessly for days together, and he carved out an exquisitely beautiful wooden Buddha. And when he took it to the master said to him, this is not what I asked for. And then it is that the novice realized that what the teacher meant was that I have to carve my life into a Buddha. And that can be done only through self-awareness, awareness of the thoughts we think, the words we utter, and the actions we perform. Let us move on to the second practical tip. Let us grow in the spirit of gratitude. If we observe ourselves, all of us, if we are true to ourselves, we will see that every day there are so many things we are continuously rowing about. We are rowing about all the things that we lack and that we desire, and we miss out on the abundance of life that we experience. Let us learn to grow in the spirit of gratitude, not only to grow in the spirit of gratitude, but to express it. Because if we don't express gratitude, it is like packing a gift for a friend and not giving it to her. Therefore, let us grow in the spirit of gratitude. There was a man, he was moving around with his friends with a gloomy disposition, and this went on for a couple of days. Finally, his friend said to him, why are you gloomy? And what did this man say? He said, 1 month back, my uncle passed away. And he left me $20,000 in his will. And they said, then why are you sad? He said, 15 days back, my aunt passed away. And she left me $50,000 in the will. And they said, you're still sad? He said, I'm sad because no one has passed away this week. This is our condition. Let us move on to the third practical tip. And the third practical tip is, let us see the good in all. Once again, if we analyze ourselves, what will we find? We find that we are drawn to the faults of others. We overlook the goodness in everyone. Even we overlook the goodness that is within us. Let us see the good in us and the good in others, in everyone, and we will never have mental health problems. Learn to see the good. When we see defects in others, we are drawing them to ourselves. When we see defects in others, we are judging them and we are separating ourselves from them. Instead of judging people, let us grow in understanding. I will not pause to give you all more stories. There is no time. Let us move on to which practical suggestion? Number 4. The fourth practical suggestion is let us grow in forgiveness. Nothing can make goodness flourish more than the attitude of forgiveness. We hold on to hurts, grudges, resentments until it turns into hatred. And what does this do? It clogs our emotional arteries. Forgiveness helps us to clear these blocks so that love can flow into us and we can experience good physical health, good emotional health, and above all, the best spiritual health. Let us move on to the fifth practical suggestion. The fifth practical suggestion is open your heart to love. What is it that the world needs today? It is love, but not the love that we relate to. When we talk of love, what do we say? So and so has fallen in love. But true love makes you rise. It doesn't make you fall. True love is not a wimpy love, a selfish love, a conditional love. True love is a sacrificing love, an unselfish love, a giving love, a forgiving love. Love in action, love that expresses itself in compassion, compassion with passion. You all must have heard the name. Okay, let me not again go because there is no time. And we come to the sixth practical suggestion. The sixth practical suggestion is nourish your soul. There was a woodcutter and he was in search of a job, and he hears there is a timber merchant who's in need of people. He goes to him, applies for a job, and he gets it. And the timber merchant on the first day gives him an axe, and he allocates an area to him, and he says to him, take this axe and go and fell down trees. He goes, the first day he's able to cut 20 trees. And he comes and he reports to the merchant, and the merchant says to him, well done, this is the way to go forward. He feels motivated. He says, next day, I will surely do better. But the next day, he's able to cut only 18 trees. He feels a little disappointed. The very next day, the number reduces to 17 and then to 15. Finally, he goes to his boss and he says to him, I am putting in more effort, I am putting in more time, but now I have lost my motivation. Why is it that on the first day I could fell 20 trees, but now the number is reducing? And the timber merchant said to him, have you paused to sharpen your axe? This is what we do. Today we are getting busier than ever and less happier than ever, because maybe we don't have the time to pause. Work is very necessary. Hard work is very necessary. Activity is very, very essential. But along with that, we need to pause and nourish our soul, because it is the soul, it is the energy of the soul. When it flows into us, this human body can function. Otherwise, the body is only a vehicle. The mind is only an instrument. If we need to function effectively, we need to nourish our soul. And what is the mark of a person who nourishes the soul? The mark of such a person is, possessions will not own him, will not define him, will not bind him. He will enjoy them, he will use them, but he will not be fettered by them. He will not become their slave. My dear friends, goodness is the investment that can never fail. It is the fertile soil in which the seeds of a new world order can be sown, a world full of peace and plenty, a world full of love and laughter, a world full of hope and healing. We live in a world of shining matter. Everything in this world emits light. But what about us? We too have a light, and that light is goodness. Let us emit this light. Now, before we close, let us reconnect with this goodness that is embedded within us. We will close with a 3 to 4 minute meditation by just reconnecting to the meditation, to the goodness that is within us. Whenever you practice it in your homes, just close your eyes for a few brief moments. Forget who's sitting to your left, to your right. When you practice this at home, give yourself a few minutes to relax your physical body and, most importantly, to still your mind. Take in a few deep breaths. We will not do that today because we are having a paucity of time. Just close your eyes. Try to be relaxed in body and mind. Try to keep both your feet on the ground. Let them gently touch the floor. And close your eyes. Visualize a pond, clear and still within you. This pond is your goodness. It is always there within you. It is uncontaminated, untainted, untouched. It is shimmering with light. But sometimes, just note this, sometimes the surface of the pond, it gets covered with our selfishness. It is as if a fog covers this pond, but beneath the surface, the pond is clear, the waters are clear, the waters are still. Visualize the light of the sun, the light of positivity, the light of love, the light of God, clearing all selfishness, all negativity, all fear. And this selfishness disappears like mist, melts before the morning sun. Now, visualize yourself seeing your true self, seeing your inner beauty, experiencing true love, true joy, true peace, true purity, and true strength. As you breathe in, feel the light growing stronger. Feel your entire being radiating with that light. Carry this light with you today. Let it shine in your thoughts, in your words, in your actions, and above all, in your presence, so that wherever you go, you carry that goodness with you. Thank you so much, Dada Shah.
Thank you, Didi Krishna. That was so nourishing for the soul. Earlier today, as part of this plenary, I was saying that Priya Natarajan makes astrophysics accessible. You make love practicable. Thank you so much. As part of our new voices, we will now invite up to the stage Ishani Singh, who is the founder and lead instructor of Girls Rule AI. Ishani is a senior at High Technology High School, a pre-engineering academy that focuses on STEM education. One of her biggest passions is machine learning and artificial intelligence, and she has worked on several machine learning projects, machine learning focused research projects. So Ishani, if you want to come up and tell us why we really need to pay attention to what you're doing in a minute. Thank you.
So when I started presenting my AI research at various science fairs and conferences, I noticed that I was usually one of the only girls in the computer science or AI category. And even in my own high school, which is a small engineering academy, there are 70 kids in my grade, but there are only 20 girls. So 3 years ago, I started Girls Will AI with the simple goal to make AI more accessible to young women. AI shapes everything from healthcare to social media, and if women aren't part of building it, their perspectives are left out. So I built a 6-lesson curriculum, created a website, and reached out to girls. At first, I worried, would anyone sign up? Could I actually teach? But today, we've taught over 250 students across 25 US states and 12 countries, led by an incredible team of instructors. Our classes are completely free, and we welcome girls from all backgrounds to join. Students who once hesitated to code are now learning how ChatGPT works and building AI models. Looking ahead, I want to expand beyond just lessons, securing sponsorships and fundraising to provide more resources, from hands-on AI tools to guest speakers, so more girls not only learn AI, but lead in it. Because AI is shaping the future, and that future should include everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ishani. And our next speaker is going to be Kailash Satyarthi, the 2014 Nobel Peace Prize laureate, but he certainly doesn't need it. I'm sorry? I'm sorry? Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, I think he's just taking a break. But what we'll do is, in any case, there was a video that needed to be played before he comes up to speak. So if you want to start the video, Shrenya.
The joys and freedom of millions of children started with just one feeling. What if the child slave Sabo was my daughter? Sabo, who was about to be sold to a brother. Sabo, whose desperate father lay in a heap at my feet. Perhaps it all started with a spark of compassion and today become a worldwide movement. I believe that each one of us is born with two natural gifts, consciousness and compassion. Both are the core reasons of our being. When we feel the suffering of others as our own suffering, with a strong drive to take action, that is compassion. God is not so meager that He has blessed us with only a little of compassion, which we have confined to our families and friends. We need to go beyond that. All that is required is to enlarge our circle of compassion. A touch of compassion is what makes each of us a problem solver, an innovator who is ready to accept all challenges and solve them. When we work towards making our world a better place, each one of us becomes a compassionate leader. In fact, all world religions and movements were born out of compassion. I stand with 8 billion people because the world is my family. In this age of interconnectedness, are we really connected with each other? Compassion is the greatest form of connectedness and love. There is no curse bigger than being alone. Loneliness is frightening. If you are connected, you are fearless. And we are the safest if we feel like a part of our global family. They are the mothers of the children. They bring better back. I am not a teacher or a preacher of compassion. I have made it a way of life. I truly believe that every solution lies in compassion in action. So, my dear friends, as we globalize markets, resources, and data, I urge you all to globalize compassion. Sangachadvam samvadadvam sambo manansi janatam deva bhagam yatha purve sanjananam upasati. We shall overcome one day.
Kailash ji really needs no introduction, although I know MR did introduce him at the dinner last night. Indiaspora is delighted to have a strong association with the Satyarthi Foundation. I know MR serves on the board of directors. We've done several things with you and Sumedha ji in the past, several events in different cities and countries, and several colleagues of yours are so very well known to us at Indiaspora. Kailash ji, would love to have you up on the stage, please.
What an incredible assembly of people here. Congratulations. I express my gratitude to MR Rangaswamiji and his team. The name Rangaswamy, if I literally translate it in English, the master of colors. Rangaswamy. So he brought all Indian colors from India and from rest of the world. That miracle you can do, and you did. I'm also grateful to all those who have showered their love and respect since I came here yesterday, including those who were pulling me here and there to take selfies. I think a few hundred people have taken photos and selfies with me since yesterday, even during my breakfast time. And when I was running here because I was feeling a little bit late, somebody stopped me, "Sir, a selfie." I said, "Okay." The reason was, let me share the secret. I had to wait decades for one photograph with a Nobel laureate, because I felt that there should be a photo which I will put in my drawing room and bedroom and everywhere. There was an occasion when I have met His Holiness Dalai Lama, but all the cameras were on him, not on me. I was going closer and closer, but the photographer did not pay any attention on me. That was before Nobel Prize. So when 10 years ago, a journalist called me, Kailashji, Nobel Prize, I could not believe my ears because I had no imagination. But when other people have confirmed it from my office, I did not miss the opportunity. I took my mobile phone, smartphone, and went in my washroom, stood in front of the mirror, and I have taken 1, 2, 10, 20 selfies, several selfies. So my first selfie with the Nobel laureate today is a very special day. And the most appropriate way to explain it is through the first mantra of Rig Veda. It says, Agni Mide Purohitam Yajjasva Deva Mrityujam Hotaram Ratna Dhatamam. This means three types of people. Purohit means those who intend and engage in a larger social good. Purohit. Ritwij, those who are willing to contribute in a larger social good in their own way. And then Hota, who are wanting to take the message of goodness forward and multiply it further. So Purohit, Ritwij and Hota assemble together. Vedic Rishi says, assemble together and offer your best. Ignite the fire of knowledge and then convert that knowledge into wealth and prosperity for all. So creation of knowledge has togetherness in it. Offering your best in this yajna that is called yajna. And then make everyone happy. There are so many things, so many teachings, great teachings, which our ancestors have given to us. But friends, this particular closing session is about the sky is the limit. We can do anything together, isn't it? So I will focus on a very personal testimony of mine. How I could think to touch the sky and work for it together, not just alone. I will give you 3 concrete examples that has shaped the history of humankind for the betterment of children. And I have some humble contribution in it. But it has a story. When I started to educate and sensitize the people about the issues of children and child slavery in early 1980 or mid-1980, there was no single person, there was no single organization, there was no United Nations agency who was working on this issue. Even the whole notion of rights of the child has been adopted by the General Assembly in 1989, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. So it was quite unusual to think like that. I wanted to educate and sensitize the people, so I started a magazine. Sangharsh jari rahega, struggle shall continue. One day, a desperate father knocked on my door, whose daughter was born and grew up in slavery at a brick kiln. Several families were lured away from Aligarh to work in Punjab. And somehow this man, Wasal Khan, came to know about me through this magazine. He had one expectation, only one, that I can publish his saga. Because the brothel agents kept on coming to buy that girl, but somehow the deal was not materialized. Then I was writing this story of him. Dear sisters, brothers, I started feeling that his daughter, Sabo, was my daughter, my sister. What would I do? I'm not going to simply write something and be happy about it that I have done my job. I would hold the whole world upside down. Whatever I could do, I will do. So I told him, Wasal Khan, brother, I'm going to go with you to rescue your daughter. I collected some friends. My wife, Sumedha, who is sitting here, she has given her wedding ornaments to manage all the logistics. And then we went to Sarhind. This place is called Sarhind. We were beaten up, me and my friends. Wasal Khan was caught. We had to come empty hands back to Delhi. But I did not give up. I never believe in giving up. Because I believe that all the solutions of any problem lie in the womb of the problem itself. You have to be resilient, you have to be honest, you have to be consistent. So I contacted a friend of mine, lawyer, went to the High Court. High Court has taken the note of it and given the order to free all the children, women and men. Altogether, 36 children, women and men were freed in the month of March 1981. This is the first recorded or documented incident in the history of humankind when the civilian effort has led to rescue of some children from slavery. And then I realized that this is nothing but my inner compassion. When I felt that if she was my daughter, Sabo was my daughter, what would I do? I did not sit quiet. It was not empathy. It was not kindness. I don't believe that kindness, empathy, mercy, benevolence can solve the deep-rooted problems in the world. There is a difference between rest of them. They are good human traits, though, make you a good human being. But empathy can lead to a situation where you feel fatigued, lost, because how long you can hold the suffering of others as your own suffering? But in case of compassion, there is an inherent power to solve the problems of suffering of other people as you solve your own problem with mindfulness. It has tremendous transformative power. And that's why we have launched this new movement, Satyarthi Movement for Global Compassion. That is not a new vertical. At the age of 70, I could think of. At the age of 20, I thought that civilization and slavery cannot go hand in hand. We will put an end to child slavery. People were laughing at me when I gave up my career as electrical engineer. But I thought that I can dream a world free of child labor. Today, dear friends, I dream a world which is a compassionate world. this is going to happen. How would it be done? I tell you that this first incident of Basal Khan and Sabo has led to a nationwide movement in India, in South Asia, then in the whole world. We organized the Global March Against Child Labor in 1998, joined by 15 million people, 71 presidents and prime ministers, kings and queens across the globe. We covered 80,000 kilometers distance on the road from 3 corners of the world and ended up in Geneva with this demand that there should be an international law to prohibit, to stop criminalized child slavery, child labor, which was not there before. In 1 year after that, in 1999, this law has been enacted. When I planned to organize this global march, people laughed at me that you are not a politician, you are not the president of a country. How can you think of making a new international legislation? And I replied humbly that the power of truth, the power of simplicity, the power of ordinary Indian person with that DNA can shape the new history of the new world, which we did together. I was stopped one time. There's another episode. When I was taking some children to enroll in a school who were freed from slavery by me and my colleagues. Perhaps you know that we have freed physically more than 130,000 children and handed them over to their parents. And every time when a child is freed, and the smile of freedom appears on the face of the mother of that child who lost all her hope, and the child cries in joy, I can see, I can feel the glimpse of God. I don't know who has seen and witnessed the God, but I'm so fortunate that me and my colleagues were able to feel that God thousands and thousands and thousands of times in our life. So, when the people said, that the education authorities said, you are not allowed to bring these children to school. They are filthy, they are dirty. I said that I'm going to sit on a, can I take another 4 or 5 minutes? Can I? Because this young lady is saying, wrap up, wrap up. Should I wrap up or should I? You want to listen to me another 5 minutes? Say yes or no. Don't clap, raise your hands. Young lady, you can also raise your hand. Thank you for your kindness. Couple of more minutes. So, I said that I'm going to sit on a hunger fast. You have to enroll these children in school. He called the peon and thrown me away, almost physically. Then a friend of mine, lawyer, said that, Kailash, don't do it. The police will come and arrest you, because in India does not have such a law on right to education. Even there is no constitutional provision in Indian constitution. Education is not a fundamental right, but it is just in the directive principles of state policy. I didn't know much. I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer. But it's okay, sir. Then I thought that let us amend India's constitution. Wasn't a crazy idea. But the sky is the limit. I said, it is possible, because constitution has been written by people, human beings, and human beings can change the constitution. The constitution is for people. People are not for the constitution and law. So, we had a plan and organized a yatra, physical march, which went on for almost 6 months from Kanyakumari to Kashmir to Delhi, demanding amendment in Indian constitution to make education as fundamental right. 163 parliament members from different parties joined hands. Lakhs and lakhs of people joined together. And within a year, India's parliament has amended the constitution and made education as fundamental right in 82nd constitutional amendment. Because then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee and then leader of opposition leader Sonia Gandhi, I have met both of them several times, and they agreed, and the entire parliament unanimously adopted the constitutional amendment bill, and then it was adopted, and within 6 years, the right to education has become the reality in the country. Believe me, sky is the limit. There are several examples, but I'm not going to give it anymore. What I say now is that world has never been, yesterday I briefly said this thing, has never been so fragmented, broken, divided, filled with hatred, fear, insecurity, as it is today. But the world has never been so wealthier, so well informed, with so much knowledge and information and data, so many religions and religious practices and religious gurus and preachings. It is filled with all those things. But what is missing? The missing is, in my opinion, the moral accountability and moral responsibility. I'm not talking about the legal responsibility, I'm talking about the moral responsibility. This emerges from within. And that is the reason. Today, there is a serious gap which is growing and deepening between those who are responsible for solving the problems and those who are suffering. They could be politicians. I'm sorry to say. They could be police officers, they could be teachers, they could be doctors. The relationship between the doctors and patients is not that relationship where doctors feel that these are, if they are my son, my daughter, my mother, my father, what would I do? They see them how to mint money, how to make money out of it. In the hospitals, what is happening in many parts of the world. So is the faith leaders, most of them. I'm not talking about a few, some of them are sitting here. But gurus are mushrooming every day, and the people are following them. Nothing is bad in it. But what is missing is that connection of feeling for the suffering and problems of others as your own problem. And that is compassion. And that's why I strongly believe that we have to demystify, decode, reinvent, rearticulate, reinvigorate the power of compassion as the transformative power of problem solving, where we have to build a culture where people start feeling the suffering of others as your own suffering and solve it with that kind of sense of urgency. That is needed in all walks of life. And therefore, we have introduced a new idea, a couple of new ideas, but the most important is compassion quotient. We have IQ, we have EQ. This is the time to measure the level of compassion because compassion is innate, it is biological, it's neurological. So how people are connecting, the ability to connect, ability to feel, ability to genuinely feel, ability to think in solving the problem, the ideation, the innovation, the initiative, and eventually the action. All these abilities could be measured, and we can build, we can make algorithms on the basis of that, and we can measure the level of compassion now, and then we can also find the way out that how we are going to enhance the level of compassion. This is my new initiative. And the second initiative is how to build the compassionate leadership in all walks of life. All walks of life. We need champions. We need compassionate leaders. It is not the words which will work. The good intents and good words are good to listen to your eyes. But I am talking about those children who were injured, and I met them in Western African countries. Ivory Coast, somebody was talking about in Kotewa. And when I asked those children, how do you like chocolate? Because they were working in cocoa fields. They said, what is chocolate? They could never dream to eat chocolate. In Pakistan, I was sitting and talking with a girl who was stitching footballs. And all the time, the blood, due to any little mistake, comes from her fingers, and she suck it and work again. And I asked, what is your dream, my daughter? Khwab kya hai tumhara, bete? She said, what is khwab? What else could be bigger crime than denying the dreams of our children? In spite of all the wealth we have in the world. That's why I call for compassion, which has the inherent power of transformation and action. We have to build the compassionate leadership. And we are working on creating the first global center for education, training, experiential learning, exposure to enhance the level of compassion and build the compassionate leadership in all walks of life globally. It is not a vertical I am creating, it is a horizontal thing. Considering that compassion is not a fragrance in the air. You love or you don't love, but you don't need it as a necessity. Compassion is oxygen in the air. If the oxygen is gone, your humanity is gone. Your institutions are killed. Your religions and faith institutions will become huge. But where is that human component? In artificial intelligence, if you are not going to incorporate the humanity, the human component in it, where it's going to lead to? So, dear friends, while concluding, let us dare to dream, my sisters, my brothers. Let us dare to dream a compassionate world. I invite you to imagine a world which I see. I see a world where the global governance and the local national governance have the feeling for its citizens. They represent the hopes and dreams of ordinary citizens and act in their policies and programs accordingly with honesty and genuinity. I see a compassionate business, a world with compassionate business where we have to follow the instruction given by a Vedic Rishi, Shat Hastra Samahar Shastra Hasta Sankir. Earn with 100 hands and distribute in the society for the betterment, for the better good with 1,000 hands. That is the business, that is the corporate we have to build for goodness of the world. I see that world. I can see through your eyes, I can see through your hearts. I see compassionate faith in religious institutions. And I invite you to see where every single religion, all religions, can celebrate unity and diversity. Their own unity, their own oneness and togetherness simultaneously. All temples and mosques in the world. I see that world where all temples and mosques and synagogues and gurudwaras and churches become the safest heaven for a child of any religion. A girl or a boy in need can rise and they are embraced like their own children. I see a world where the judiciary and police is compassionate, where the justice reaches out to the last person of society, fairly and fast. Dear friends, let us march. As Vedic Rishi says, let us march from darkness to light. Asato ma sadgamay, tamaso ma jyotirgamay, mrityor ma amritam gamed. Let us march from falsehood, untruth to nobility to truth. Let us march from mortality to divinity. Let us march from darkness to light. This is the place. This is the place. You are the people. That's why I'm taking much of your time, and I said that this is a very special day in the history when you can convert the forum for good into a real yajna, where you offer your best and make a compassionate world. Make oxygen so that all institutions and individuals, not only in India but globally, can survive and flourish. I invite you to join this dream and this movement. Don't feel that you alone cannot do. There was a heavy fire broken out in jungle. All animals and birds were rushing for a safer place, including King Lion. And Lion noticed a tiny hummingbird was flying towards flames, fire. And he surprisingly shouted, "What are you doing, committing suicide?" She replied, "No, sir. I am born and grew up here. I am going to extinguish this fire." "How come?" more surprisingly he asked. She said, "Lord, look at my beak. I am carrying a drop of water. I am doing my bit." Dear friends, that hummingbird decides each one of you. I'm not a leader, I'm not a priest. But I can feel that when you feel the suffering of others, when you wanted to help, when you wanted to join something to shape a new world of goodness, this is because of that hummingbird. I am here to awaken that hummingbird inside you. Come on and join the movement. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kailash ji, for inspiring us and making us more compassionate people. We've never done an event of this scale, even in the United States or in India, which are our two strongest areas, and active in the UAE, but we've never done anything of this scale, obviously, before, with this kind of complexity and so many moving parts, so many people from different countries, so on and so forth. When you go to a new country, you need a good host. And we have been fortunate and privileged that His Excellency Dr. Tayyib Kamali has been an outstanding host and guide for us. Dr. Tayyib Kamali he has a background, by the way, a doctorate from my city, George Washington University in Washington, DC. He's the chairman of the Abu Dhabi School of Management. But as far as I'm concerned, the thing that I'll say that I hold closest to my heart is he's the chairman of the Emirates Cricket Board. Dr. Kamali, if you could please come up on stage.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kamali. So why did you decide to work with us?
How could I not? I mean, first of all, I just want to take a moment just to say how great it's been. So nice to see our Nobel Peace Prize winner of 2014, Kailash, to be standing here, to be sitting here among this wonderful group and listen to you. And I'm glad that this is the last session because there won't be no address after your address. So when Kailash speaks, we listen. Thank you so much. What was your question? Sorry, Amar, you were saying something?
Why did you decide to work with us?
What did I decide? No, I think it's from the moment, I spotted him, there's some magic, you can feel from MR. And I don't know what it was, but the moment we sat down, I always ask myself when I meet people for the first time, I ask after the meeting, whether it's 2 minutes, 1 minute, 10 minutes, if it feels like it's not the first time, I think I will see this person again and again. With MR, it was obvious from the very start that our meeting was very special. And to see someone so dedicated to bring people together and on a forum for good. Now, I'll share, sometime you think of these fancy themes when you hear in conferences, but this conference, Forum for Good, a very straightforward theme that touches all of, because we all want to be good in some way, at every moment, at every time we are doing something. And just to remember the theme, I think that can bring so many of you together from all your busy schedule. And it's so nice to see that there are at least nearly 400 or 500 of you here. It's still similar number to day one. And I had a feeling from the moment we met that this is going to be a very special event indeed. So let me, if I answered it completely, but let me just go on, and because I really don't want to keep everyone, because my only purpose today, coming back for this afternoon, was just to see everyone one more time with one message. And of course, the big treat was Kailash, our wonderful Nobel Peace Prize winner. I think I just wanted to come here and say thank you. Thank you to MR for bringing all of you here. Thank you for every one of you that out of your tough schedule, because I know scheduling to get away how hard it is. And a lot of you are not as if you didn't have a lot of activities and duties, because I know some of you personally, and I know how difficult it is to make time. But you made time. Time for good. Time for good. And time for good is what I want to remember when I leave this afternoon. Thank you so much for coming. One more time, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kamali. We have something special for you. We chose a nice color for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You're coming back again to Abu Dhabi. That's it. Don't forget. He's fishing for where to go. I want you all to tell him to come back to Abu Dhabi. Yes?
So this pretty much wraps up, Sanjeev. So quickly, can we summarize so we can go do the next set of things and dinner and stuff?
Absolutely, MR. Any last closing thoughts before we end?
I think the closing session was brilliant with Didi Krishna talking about goodness, with Kailash Satyarthi talking about compassion. I think these are all parts of the Indianness that Gopal talked about today. What is Indianness? And also Dr. Todi Nader talking about transcendental meditation. I mean, all this brought the soft side of Indianness. It's not about making money. It's not about transactions. It's about what does Indianness mean? Seva, service, goodness, meditation. Priya talked about that as well. So I mean, the entire afternoon plenary, and also talking about our mental health in all these things. I mean, we bring that Indianness and the soft side of India together. That's what I'm taking away. And like Dr. Kamali said, goodness, and the Forum for Good embodies that. So that's what I'm leaving with.
I think you're right, Amar. All the plenary sessions and the breakouts, from what I've heard, I roamed around and tried to attend portions of several of them. All of them have been inspiring, moving, and really inspirational. I've loved all the speakers. In fact, I know several of you among the attendees who were in the audience could have been and are speakers in your own right at various conferences, and that's what we love about this event. It's been a wonderful 2.5 days in Abu Dhabi. We are still not done. We have today coming up experiences, and then we have the Dubai, the Global AI Summit. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Iman?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention is, I mentioned it yesterday in my opening, that there would be unexpected meetings and stuff, and one of those happened today. There was a doctor here yesterday who actually was attending our event, right? And there was one of our attendees whose uncle had had a transplant here, and she met this doctor. This doctor from our group actually went to the hospital to give a second opinion to a patient here in Abu Dhabi today. And so these are the kinds of things that are happening around us at this event.
You know, I had someone at the event tell me over lunch that he met someone 50 years ago who he knew, and suddenly came up, they happened to be at the same event together, our event. We brought them together from different countries now, school buddies.
So a lot of these experiences have happened, the serendipity moments, and so forth. So I think we leave with a lot of goodness, a lot of gratefulness, a lot of things to follow up on, and make a bigger impact on the world. So, so to conclude, what else do we have today?
I think we have a list of the sponsors. I'll just read them out very quickly. I know you've seen them on the boards here as well as outside, but these events are not possible on this scale without sponsors and partners, so I'll read them out quickly. And then after that, I'll ask the staff to come up for a closing picture. Our corporate sponsors are Apollo Hospitals, Chirate Ventures, First Abu Dhabi Bank, Perot Chain, Quilt.ai, Tula, Westbridge Capital, and Zscaler. Our individual sponsors are Anand Deshpande, Bharat Desai, Himanshu Shah, Raj Gupta, Sunil Wadhwani, Suresh Katta, Pulak Prasad, and Deepak Raj. Then our institutional sponsors are Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, Mayfield Fund Foundation, and we have also the Abu Dhabi Conventions and Exhibition Bureau Department. So a huge thank you for making this possible. Before I invite the team up who make up Indiaspora and make this event possible, one last thing, a huge thank you, as Dr. Kamali has already said, huge thank you to all of you. The attendees make the event. We've loved having you here, and we hope that many of you are back later on for other Indiaspora events in different places. So thank you for being here.
And a couple more things. There's an experience with Dr. Amit Anand and Clint that's going to happen in the media room in a few minutes. If you want to improve your sleep using pranayama, again, another thing about India, please visit the media room. There will be a session, and then after you fall asleep, you can come for dinner at 7 o'clock at the Luma.
Correct. At the Luma
Terrace for a closing dinner tonight. And then for those of you, many of you I know are going to Dubai with us tomorrow for the AI Summit. The buses are going to leave at what time?
Please help me. The buses are leaving at what time, please, Nisha?
What time are buses leaving for Dubai? 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. Yeah, so we need to load up the luggage and get in our buses and leave. So please come at 8:30, and we will transport you to Dubai for the Dubai AI Summit, which is, again, going to be a fantastic session.
Breakfast begins at 6:30 tomorrow. For those of you who want breakfast, it's a special early breakfast. The Dubai AI Summit is from 12 noon to 6:30 p.m. at the Museum of the Future. right? So we look forward to having many of you there, and we'll be joined by some new attendees there as well.
There was a question. Yes, you will bring your suitcases. We'll be able to store the suitcases tomorrow at the museum.
All right. Well, with that said, let me now finally bring up the staff. So staff, all of you, please start walking up.
Indiaspora team, come up.
I'll announce your names as you are walking up. I see on my right, Shri Kumar Nair, our CEO in India and Senior Vice President for the Global East. Neha Dewan, Senior Vice President of Operations and General Counsel. Bunty from the country in Singapore. Shobha Vishwanathan, Senior Vice President of Community Relations. Sarah Subin, the Coordinator of Community Relations. Amita Siddiqui, Director of Events. Mansi Dhadne, Senior Director of Community Relations. Natasha Hitocha, Community Relations Coordinator. Samir Acharya, Marketing Manager. Annie Paryadipura, Global West Coordinator. On my left, I see Nisha Nambiar, Senior Director in Bangalore. Prabha Iyer, Director of Community Relations. Manjula Manoj, Director in New Delhi of Community Relations. Meena Amin, who is our country head in the UK. Meera Bhairu, sorry, I can't even see any of you anymore. Meera Bhairu, who is our Marketing Manager. Shrenya Malik, who is our Senior Manager in Delhi of Community Relations. Preeta D'Souza, who is our Director in Mumbai. Jai Patel, our country head in Australia, and one person who could not make it, Sandra Davis, our HR and Finance Manager in the United States. Last but not least, M.R. Rangaswamy, Founder and Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Indiaspora.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, team. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.